Thinking geographically means considering and understanding the context of what is going on in the world. Geographers do this within a spatial context. The term spatial in geography means how phenomena is either associated, distributed, varied, diffused, and/or interacted with another. In this lecture, we will examine 5 concepts that geographers use to understand spatial relationships. They are place, space, spatial diffusion, spatial interaction, and scale. The first concept is place. Place is a specific location distinguished by unique physical and social characteristics, including its site and situation. Site refers to its physical characteristics, topography, water resources, vegetation, wildlife. For example, in the picture to the left, physically, Istanbul, Turkey occupies a hilly site adjacent to a deep harbor and has grown on both sides of the Bosporus, a narrow and strategic waterway that connects the Mediterranean and Black Seas. From left to right, across the hilltop, are the Hagia Sophia, now a museum, and the Blue Mosque. Situation refers to the geographic context of a place, including its political, economic, social, or other characteristics. How is it situated and where? Is it located on a river in the middle of the country, on a coastline? Is it an economic hub? Does it have a vibrant social life? The map to the right depicts the situation of Istanbul, Turkey's largest city, in relation to the surrounding bodies of water, the rest of the country, and neighboring regions. By virtue of its situation, Istanbul straddles the regions of Europe and Asia. The second concept is space. Since place is associated with a specific place, space is associated with either a bounded or unbounded area that either can be absolute or relative. A formal region is a good example of absolute space. You can define it by precise measurement, more like a container. Recently, geographers have shifted their interest to the study of relative space. Relative space is defined by contingency. In other words, human interactions and perceptions are contingent on who and what are involved to how that space is created. This is often called the hub and spoke network, similar to LinkedIn. Facebook is another example of relative space. When you log on and chat with your friends, you are creating a relative space. You both are in 2 separate places physically, but connected through the internet at the same place. The text uses the example of international trading. When all their contingent conditions are satisfied, like the supply of a desired product, mutual agreements are in place, and favorable diplomatic relations exist, then the 2 countries can trade and thus create a relative space of trade. Geographers also gain an insight into space through spatial variation, spatial association, and distribution. Spatial variation refers to the changes in the distribution of a phenomena from one place to another. In other words, why does this place have a lot of a phenomena, while another place has only a few? For example, in Figure 1.9, the map on the left shows closed canopy forests, which are remarkably different between northern and southern Vietnam. A geographer would want to explore this in more detail. Looking at the map on the right, spatial association refers to the degree to which 2 or more phenomena share similar distributions. Again, with the same country, there's a strong correlation between high forests and high poverty rates. Why do you think that is? This does not necessarily mean that one caused the other. Understanding this association demands an investigation of other factors, including economic forces, political policies, historical developments, and social practices. Lastly, distribution refers to the arrangement of phenomena on or near the Earth's surface. In other words, where is the phenomena located? The third concept is spatial diffusion. Spatial diffusion is the spread of a phenomena across space and over time and includes 4 common types. 1. Relocation, which is the movement from one place to the next, like in migration. 2. Contagious, which is the random movement from one to the other, like in the common cold. 3. Hierarchical, which is the movement from top down or ranking order, like a new product line in a business. And 4. Stimulus, which is the movement that prompts new ideas or innovations, like a new kind of fast food restaurant. Going from McDonald's hamburgers to Subway's fresh sandwiches would be an example. The map and diagram are an example of hierarchical spatial diffusion. Hierarchical diffusion involves cascading or stair-stepping from one level or rank to another. In this example, Big Apple Togs, a hypothetical fashion chain headquartered in New York City, launches a fashion innovation that is diffused hierarchically through the company. The fourth concept is spatial interaction. Spatial interaction is the connections and relations that develop among places and regions as a result of the movement or flow of people, goods, and information. There are three factors that influence spatial interaction. One, the first is complementary. That is where one place can supply another place with goods and resources they could not otherwise provide for themselves at their domain level. For example, coffee grown in Brazil, Colombia, and Indonesia help satisfy demand in Europe and the US, where coffee is not grown. Second is transferability, the cost of moving goods and the ability of the goods to withstand that cost. Is it cost effective to move a commodity? Shipping costs are usually measured by weight and size of the item. It is harder to ship a big heavy item across the world. Historically, distance deterred spatial interaction until the invention of the train, plane, and container ship. Those innovations changed spatial interaction greatly. And the third is intervening opportunity, a different location that can provide a desired good more economically. For example, have you ever noticed gas prices are different in other places close by? That usually comes from the additives that gasoline companies put into their gas. There's different requirements, laws, and regulations in different places. Gas prices are higher the further you go north towards Washington, D.C. than Spotsylvania. That means the D.C. area has a higher regulations on additives and emissions. If someone from the north were traveling south along I-95, they could stop in Spotsylvania to buy gas as an intervening opportunity. Spatial interaction can be affected by distance decay, which is the tapering off of a process, pattern, or event over a distance. I'm not willing to go too far for a grocery store. The farther the grocery store, the less likely I will go. And population density usually diminishes with the increasing distance from the downtown area. So land developers look at distance decay when selecting a site to locate a new business. Let's look at Northern Virginia employers and commuting distances. At which point, distance-wise, do you think people will stop looking for work in Northern Virginia? Maybe Spotsylvania, maybe Caroline. What do you think? The example on the slide is distance of burglars in relation to where they lived. Burglars more often commit their crimes closer to home. Using what they know about distance decay for burglaries, investigators mapped incidences in The Hague, Netherlands, to identify the area where the burglars likely lived, thereby narrowing their search. Spatial interaction is also affected by time-space convergence, which is the process that brings places closer together in both time and space. We see this relative distance reduced with technology innovations in transportation and communication. It makes us seem closer to other parts of the world than we actually are in actual distance. On the flip side of that, though, it may seem like we're farther apart because we use cell phones a lot instead of a face-to-face meeting. The last concept is geographic scale. Geographic scale refers to how we show geographical information in relation to its actual size on the Earth or in relation to a hierarchy. There are two main classifications of scale, map scale and observational scale. Map scale is usually distinguished by either small scale or large scale designation. The easiest way to understand map scale is that in small scale you see less amount of detail over a larger area. Large scale, on the other hand, is a lot more detail over a smaller area. In other words, small scale, small amount of detail, big area. Large scale, large amount of detail, small area. Observational scale is the level of analysis used in a specific project or study. Examples are the body, home, neighborhood, city, region, country, and then global scale. Observational scale has the opposite description of map scale. The body would be considered small scale and the global level would be considered large scale. It's not so much the level of detail as it is the thing that you're observing. There are four ways you can describe a scale, with verbal, ratio, fractional, and graphic abilities as shown on the slide. Please pause the video and answer the following. Thinking like a geographer and using at least one of the spatial concepts discussed, describe why the term spatial is important to geographers. In your own words and using the text as a guide, be thorough and specific with your answer.